Hi, I'm Mary. So glad we could meet. I'm going to make you look beautiful today. This is a line I heard when I finally became somewhat coherent. After that, I noticed that I could not see. My eyelids were shut and I couldn't find the strength to open them. Next, I noticed that I couldn't move my body. I felt like a lump of sandbags that had been thrown to the bottom of the ocean. The makeover I'm going to give you is for one of the biggest days of your life. This lady had a strange twang to her voice. Did she realize that I couldn't move? Did she realize that I was alive? She was talking to me after all. She must have had some sort of inclination that I could hear what she was saying. When new product comes in, we will go through all the basic steps of beautifying. Isn't that exciting? I'll shampoo your hair, wash and moisturize your face for the perfect makeup application, and even play some music in the background. Some high quality pampering time is the least I can do for the beating that you went through. I tried to move my mouth and create some sort of sound, but the more I tried, the more I realized that the crisis I was in. I was locked inside of my body. The only thing I could control were my thoughts. The lady continued to ramble on. I would say that my clients appreciate what I do for them. Not just any mortician could do what I do. Some say that it is a true talent, but I think it's just a matter of technique. Technique really does make all of the difference. Mortician? Did I hear that correctly? Why would I be with a mortician right now? My heart began to beat against my stilled body. Have I died? I was only 21 years old, too young to die. This isn't right. I can't be dead. I can hear everything happening around me. Ooh, honey, you are so gorgeous. I knew it as soon as I saw you. You would be a hit and I couldn't wait to get my hands on you. Don't get me started on your brown curly hair. It's one of my favorites to work with. A squirting sound filled my ears, followed by a few thuds, and then another squirt. A cold substance touched my scalp, followed by a massaging of two hands on each side of my skull. Okay, honey. I'm washing your hair and then I'm going to put a deep moisturizer on your locks. And then I'll spritz you with an oil to make your hair shiny after we get done blow drying. I can feel a tingling sensation on my lips. It almost feels like the blood is running back to them, and they are fizzling back to life, nerves and muscles awakening. I'm going to do all I can for you since you are only with me for a short amount of time. The lady with the twang continued to explain every step of the process to me. She keeps calling this my pampering time. It scares me that she says that we are only going to be together for a short amount of time. Where will I be taken after this? Do they think that I'm dead? Am I going to be buried alive? I tried to contract and flex my muscles, but I couldn't make the connection between the brain and body. All I could do was lay on the table and listen to her words fill my head. Not all my clients are easy like you. No. Some require extreme makeovers, but that is all part of the job. That is why I get paid well for what I do. I am providing an important service after all. What had happened to me to put me in a situation like this? Now for my favorite part. The makeup. The clinking and shuffling of little, fat, thick, and thin makeup brushes tickled my ears as she lined her tray with each tool. The sound of her mulling through her color palette would have almost put me in a trance if I weren't scared shitless. Blush is my personal favorite. I always want my product to leave my studio looking alive as possible. The bristles of her brush danced across my skin, as the blush was carefully colored onto my cheekbones. Oh, this is the color that I just die for. You look like you just saw your crush walk into the room, I'm digging it. So gorgeous, honey. I could feel the heat of the lamps above my face, creating microscopic sweat beads as my flesh warmed up under the bulbs. Now we just need to add the final perfect touch. Now, the client has requested the color red, so give me a second as I dig through the options. What did she mean by the client? Was she referring to my family? Did my family think that I was dead? Was this mortician preparing me for a funeral? Should we do cherry red, cranberry red, or burnt red? Oh, who am I kidding? It's obvious the color should be cranberry red with your complexion. The sensation was becoming stronger in my lips. I tried to twitch them again, and to my surprise, my mouth slightly opened. Okay, honey, we're now going to move on to the spray tan, and then we are going to finish up with your manicure. Now for the tan, we have a couple of different options for your base color, but I'm thinking we should go with this pinky hue since you are so fair. Just to liven you up a bit, you know. The sensation began to run through my toes and fingertips. Would I eventually be able to move those as well? I couldn't wait for my body to wake up, but what would happen to me if I couldn't wake myself up in time? I had to hurry. She rubbed the primer on my skin and started spraying away. The scent of coconuts and pineapples filled my nose. I tried to think of my happy place on the beach as I played with the tingling sensation in my fingertips. First the nerves and then the muscles. Come on, make the connection. I could feel the swatches of color brush against my nails, and I waited to try and move my fingers. Oh, done, honey. My gosh, you are a little firecracker. You're gonna be oohed and awed over when everybody sees you today. The sensation was like fire through my fingers now. I could feel my pinky starting to twitch. Okay, honey, I'm going to give you the rundown on how this evening will go. First, your viewing will be held up on the stage. Viewing? Okay, this must be a funeral. If I will have people coming to see me, perhaps somebody will notice me moving. I can be saved from this. Each man will come up and view you, and after the auction is over, you will go back with the highest bidder. See, it's so easy, and remember, you look beautiful. Wait, auction, bidder, men looking at me. A screech and a whoosh filled my ears, and I heard something being wheeled towards me. And then the unlatching of something filled my ears, and before I realized what was happening, my body was being hoisted from the table and laid inside whatever bed-like box I was being put in. 4 hands were now on me. This lady had somebody helping her. My limp body was getting gently laid onto a soft satin cushion. A pair of hands pulled on the dress I was wearing, flattening and perfecting my outfit. Finally, my left arm was placed over my right, and the lid was shut and latched. I could hear the 2 people talking outside the exterior of the box that I was in. You did a good job, Mary. She looks perfect for her viewing. Oh, thanks, Beau. She's going to be a hot and fast sale. Seriously, Mary. It takes a lot of work to make a dead body look somewhat lively, at least to get through a few rounds with the client. What's your secret? Not all of my products are dead to begin with, Beau. Paralytic agents create the same effect as a dead body. Oh, wait, but the client thinks. I know. I'm deceiving the buyer. But product would run low if I had to wait for a decent looking dead body every time that we do this. What do you think the client will do when the paralytic finally wears off of her? It's not like they're going to go to the police. That would be quite foolish. You're bad, Mary. No, Beau. Our clients are bad. I'm just providing a service. The conversation ended and my box was being wheeled away. We entered a room and the chatter of testosterone-filled voices echoed throughout the room. My eyelids were still shut, but that familiar tingling sensation started to radiate through them. I heard the unlatching of my box and then a ray of light hit the back of my eyelids. I was on display. A few of the men gasped, and I heard shuffling of paper, which I'm guessing was money. I could feel the tingling sensations running up my arms and legs. I could almost fully bend my big toe. And then I heard the words that made a cold sweat break down my back. A brown curly-haired girl, died young and is oh so beautiful. Her body is still very well intact. I swear that you'll still be able to feel some warmth left. 100,000 going once, going twice. Sold. My limp body shifted slightly and vibrated as my box was latched shut again and rolled into a separate room. The chatter of male voices slowly faded from my ears as we rolled farther away. We entered a quiet room and then my box came to a halt. I could hear a belt buckle hitting the ground, and my heart began to thud against my lump of a body. The tingling sensation ran through my entire body now, and I knew that I was so close to being able to move. My ankles began to twist and turn as my feet started to wake up, and then my wrists rotated around finally. I cracked each finger awake and my body was returning to normal. The lid unlatched and I felt a breath of fresh air hit me, which I was thankful for then. Disgust set in. A cold, clammy hand ran up the inner side of my left thigh. My dress began to crinkle as the nervous hand crept higher. Come on, damn it, wake up! My jaw fell open a little more and with all the power I had, I raised my eyelids and I looked the man straight in the eyes. The man looked to be in his mid-40s. He was wearing a business suit and had a wedding ring on his finger. His eager smile turned downwards as his eyes met mine and his brain registered what was happening. What the hell? Fire and pins and needles ran through every inch of my body, like when your arm falls asleep and it starts to awaken. My arms and legs began to sway back and forth in the casket that I laid in. White satin linens held my body, the body that this man thought was deceased. I lifted my head and I ran my perfectly polished nails across my torso. I contracted my abs to wake up the rest of my body. The red lace dress hit at my knees and I could see my calf muscles beginning to wake up with a slight twitch of each contraction. My biceps contracted and my abs pulled against my chest as I pulled myself into a seated position. The man stared back at me with an empty expression. He looked as if he had just seen a ghost, which I don't blame him, considering that he thought I was dead 2 minutes ago. I lurched the rest of my body from the mahogany casket and I hit the floor with a thud. I could finally move, but my coordination hadn't completely returned. The man sprang at me in a moment of panic as he saw his $100,000 purchase begin to escape. The palms of my hands flattened against the cold tile floor, and I pushed myself into a squatted position before my legs finally cooperated and carried me from the room. Before I could make it to the door, I felt a tug on the bottom of my dress. My head whipped around in a sharp 180 degrees and I saw the man gripping the fabric in my dress. I let out a scream and then he grabbed my arm and tried to pull me to the ground. No, please, let me go. Why are you doing this to me? The wrestling ensued as I tried to make my getaway from the disturbed man. You'll tell. You see my face. I'm a well-respected pillar of the community. I would lose everything if my job or wife found out. I'm not going to let you ruin me. I won't tell, please, just let me go. This has been a misunderstanding. The man was sweating profusely and shouted in a grunt at me. I spent $100,000 for a dead girl, and if they can't guarantee dead, then I'll do it myself. The fabric in my dress tore, leaving my thigh exposed. My memory started to come back from the day I was taken. I vaguely remember struggling as the guy wrestled me down. The details were a blur, but I remember being given a shot and then blackness followed. I was so close to freedom. I couldn't let any man with a sick fantasy take that from me. Instead of pulling my arm away from him, which is what he expected me to do, I ran towards him as fast as I could and I wrapped my other arm around his neck. I pulled his head down and I shot my knee up into his navel. He let go of my arm and used both hands to block my knee. I knew I had to get him good though, or else I would not make it out of the door. His hand started to reach for my throat before I swiftly bent down and headbutted his torso, and I wrapped my fingers just under the bend in his knee. The force of my head pushing his torso back along with the pull of my hands on his legs made him flip onto his back. As he went down, he took a handful of my hair and yanked it at it to take me down. The pain was fierce, but I used every ounce of adrenaline I could not to surrender to the pain. He coughed and grunted as he tried to pull the air back into his lungs. A clump of brown curly hair rested in his grip. I ran my fingers along my burning scalp. My fingers ran over a raw patch of flesh which stung with each tender touch. I winced from the pain, but I knew that now was my chance to run. I didn't have long. My ballet flats slid along the tile floor as I made my way to the door. I put my hand to the doorknob and I looked behind me. The man was already on his knees. Could I outrun him? Possibly, but could I outrun every other man that gathered on the other side of this door? I had no other choice but to try. The door swung open and I watched as a gymnasium full of men walked between each new casket. So many girls my age, each dolled up and dressed in revealing dresses. Were they all dead or were they in the same situation as me? My legs felt like jello as I ran towards the exit sign. I heard a man yell and then I heard silence, followed by pandemonium. "Get her, now!" It sounded like a stampede was chasing close behind, but I did not dare look behind me. I had my eyes on the prize, which was the exit sign. I prayed that the door wouldn't be locked. The footsteps and shouting grew louder, but I used all my might to push harder and faster for that exit. Finally, my hands met the bar of the door and it swung open to the daylight. Freedom. I ran as fast as I could. Luckily, the gymnasium that we were in wasn't too far from a busy section of town. Surely, nobody would be brave enough to chase me into traffic. That would raise a lot of questions. I looked behind me as I made my way towards the traffic that rushed by. Not a single man had stepped a foot out of that gymnasium. I gave my statement to the police, but there was no evidence left in my body of any drug that had been administered. They went back to the gymnasium, but of course, the place had been cleaned and stripped to the last piece of dust in the corner. I'm still trying to piece everything together. How did I end up in that situation to begin with? I had always been careful. I never met up with strangers and I never left my drink unattended. One thing has caught my attention though. Through this whole investigation, my parents had been acting off. They didn't seem too surprised that I had gone missing, which isn't too odd since I was 21 years old and I usually am off with friends. However, there was something different about the way that they were handling the investigation. Whenever the detectives requested a testimony from my mom and dad, they both looked at each other. My mom's hands were trembling and my dad had a scowl on his face. They almost seemed nervous. What would they have been nervous about? Shouldn't they be happy that their kidnapped daughter had made it home? Shouldn't they be a little bit more eager to hunt down the people who did this to me? That night, I snuck up to the air vent that connected to the room. I could hear footsteps pacing the floor and whispered arguing coming from them. I made sure to keep nice and quiet and I placed my ear to the vent eagerly. As the following conversation unraveled, I felt a wave of nausea stir in my stomach. My hands became clammy, and I knew that I had to leave that house. Now, right now. I just don't understand what happened. We have done this a dozen times, Harry. Who would have thought that you would remember this time? No, Cheryl, that Mary is a loon. I knew that we shouldn't have switched companies. That lady didn't know what she was doing. You ordered both shots, right? I ordered the paralytic like always. I told her that we needed her back afterwards. She should have known that we need the amnesia drug administered. Well, from what the cops said, It sounds like the paralytic wore off early. Mary probably didn't even get the chance to administer the second shot. That's just so unprofessional. That poor man. What do we do about our friends? Don't tell the parents. We can't afford to have this much cash flow come to a halt. Let's just let this blow over. We have covered our tracks. Once this dies down, we can go back to the old company and have her auctioned over time to make up for the lost time. That was all that I could let myself hear. I packed a duffel bag and I left that night. If you're listening to this, just know that there are sick people in the world willing to do vile things to others. The people that you love, the people who are supposed to protect you from these horrible people, are sometimes just as horrible.